You're listening to the Staging Sips podcast with Lori Fisher. This podcast is dedicated to helping real estate staging CEOs build healthy businesses that grow, flow, and thrive. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to this week's podcast. I hope you all had an amazing week. And for those of you in the U.S. who celebrated Thanksgiving, I hope it was a really nice one. And I'm happy to be back with you this week. So this week, we're talking about how to prepare your brain for growing a home staging business. So this is a topic I love to geek out about because it's something that I didn't even know was important when I started my staging business. And I love to tell the story of my working with my second business coach. My first one was Deborah Gould of the Staging Diva. She's amazing. If you're just starting out your business, she's really excellent about giving you the tools to get your business started. But I had been in business for about 2 years, and I wasn't really getting the volume of business that I was hoping for. So I had a fellow business colleague and friend reach out to me to let me know about her business coach, Fabienne Fredrickson. And she had been in this Fabienne Fredrickson's coaching program for a little bit, a business coaching program. And so I thought, all right, well, let me check this thing out. So again, I was like 2 years into business and my calendar wasn't completely full. I was, meeting clients, like if they had 2 hours notice for an appointment and, hey, do you mind showing up for this listing appointment so I can do the consult at the same time? I'd be like, sure. Yeah. And I'd be running all over the place when I did have clients. But, I just had a lot of struggles. I didn't really have any consistent marketing plan. I actually didn't even know I needed one. I didn't have a lot of boundaries in my business. I didn't have a real schedule to my business. So I was really thinking that I needed help more with the marketing to get people in the door so that I could actually serve them. So I had an interview with Fabienne Fredrickson's coach, and the price tag was almost 5 figures. I did not have that money, but I figured out that I probably needed this program, and I loaded up a credit card and was ready to roll. I thought, okay, she's a business coach. She's a marketing coach. She just talked me into spending almost 5 figures in coaching. This is going to be amazing. And I got to my first meeting, and I would say 80% of it was all about mindset. And I thought, what the hell did I just spend my money on? I had also had to travel from Philadelphia to Connecticut. So I had train fare, I had hotel fees, all of that for these 3-day in-person quarterly meetings that she was running, in addition to the almost 5-figure tuition. And I thought, dang, I've been duped. Although, as I was sitting in that room and I looked around at probably 15 tables of 8 people full, I thought, wow, well, she's doing something right for marketing. So I really should just hang with her. I'm sure this is just a mistake. These sessions on mindset are probably a mistake. But I realized after being in the coaching program with her for 2 years, and then, of course, being in business for, the next 10 years where I am right now at the time of this recording, that mindset is so much of the game in running a staging business. And today I'm going to make the case for why that is and how we can do better at preparing our brains for growing our staging businesses. So I just recently read the book by David Goggins. He's the author of Can't Hurt Me. It's an excellent book. It's crass. It's misogynistic. It's a lot of things. But I think that shouldn't diminish the message, which is David Goggins. If you're not aware of him, he was in, I believe, the special ops for both Navy and Army, if I can remember the course of everything in his book. But he was a Navy SEAL. He went through Navy SEAL training 3 times and then obviously became a Navy SEAL. And he also became an ultra marathon runner, an ultra triathlon participant, triathlete, I guess. So he's accomplished a lot of things that have pushed through a physical barrier. And what he talks about is the fact that so many things in life are easier read than done. They're easier said than done. And that when you get into doing something is when your brain is going to want to send you all of the messages about why you should be quitting, stopping, changing direction. Why are you doing this in the first place? This isn't even worth it. All of those things. And what he talked about was by going through all of those challenging physical experiences, what he learned was that at every point in every race that he did, every bit of training he did, that at some point his brain would start sending up those messages. And the better he could get about talking his brain through quitting, essentially, the more he realized he could physically do. And he says that most of us only live to about 40% of our potential because we hear our brain sending up messages like, this is ridiculous. Why are you even bothering doing this? And we believe it and we quit. So I think it's such a great metaphor. And the reason why I loved reading this was because, I realize that now 12 years into a business, the path to business success is long, it's boring, it's isolating, and it's sometimes really painful. We learn painful lessons. We have to push through a lot of our own discomfort to really achieve what we want. And I know there's that whole saying that says, your success is at the edge of your comfort zone. And I know that sounds super cliche, and it is. It really is. But our comfort zones get challenged all of the time when we're in business. And, our personal discomfort, right? Our personal comfort zones get challenged all the time. But it's so interesting because there are other people around us that their comfort levels are different and what they push through is differently. And they can talk themselves through the discomfort to get to the other side to really see the success. So I really want you to understand that when you are in your business and you are experiencing discomfort in anything, whether it is sending the email, writing the putting out the social media post, any of that kind of stuff, this is all normal. It's all a part of the process. If you find yourself procrastinating or you find yourself trying to do more menial tasks than reaching out to set up a coffee date, for example, to meet somebody or a networking event, this is all totally normal. What we need to know is what to do when our brain starts serving up all of those messages that tell you we're uncomfortable and then push through them. I hope that's making sense. So this actually came up for me also when in a Facebook post recently, somebody posted about how they were struggling with, they just didn't have enough clients. And obviously I have so much compassion for that, especially I'm recording this in what's the winter months in the United States where I am. And in my zip codes and geography, it's very quiet in the real estate market at this time of year. And that can happen for a lot of people. So anyway, and that's totally normal. That's a normal part of the business process. This business owner just didn't happen to know that yet, but also didn't realize how much marketing needs to happen in order to generate the business that you need for to get clients. But in the comment section, somebody had recommended to her that they have made a lot of money by texting people. And there was a whole frenzy of people who were like, "Ooh, I'd love that strategy. Ooh, can you send that to me?" And I thought, okay, first of all, that's super compelling. I think that's amazing that this person has made a lot of money texting. But my second thought was for everybody who was reaching out, who wanted that, what they probably don't understand is that this person who's making a lot of money texting has some very great thoughts about texting to make money. And that strategy will work when you create aligned, excellent thoughts to go with it. If not, it becomes another strategy that people try and they put on the shelf. So that person, I don't know who it is, but they likely have thoughts around their texting strategy, like, their brain saw value in it. Like if I can stay in touch via texting, that, creates a great connection. And I think that's amazing for my business. They might have thought something like texting isn't a bother. It's of service. Staying in touch with my clients by texting them to let them know what's going on in my business, or texting them back and forth to create a relationship, is not bothering them. It's actually, giving them the gift of knowing about my service and creating that connection that will ultimately lead to them hiring me. Their brain actually didn't stop them from texting, right? So some of us will grab that strategy and be like, ooh, that sounds awesome. Like, especially for introverts, I can see as a fellow introvert, I can see the value in being like, oh, I just need to send text. Excellent. However, your brain may stop you. They may say, ooh, I don't know if this is the right tone. Will they understand this? Should I put emojis? Should I not put emojis? Maybe I shouldn't use exclamation points. Maybe this is going to interrupt them during an important time. Like all those things that will come up for your brain that will stop you from actually using the strategy. So I want you to know that in your business, you will come across a lot of strategies and ideas that will all work for your business. Every single one of them. If they're working for one person, likely they can work for you. But the key is that you have to prepare your brain to commit to the strategy or strategies that you choose. And also, we all do have unique selling styles and marketing styles that not every strategy is a one strategy fits all, but the common denominator is your ability to get your brain on board with using whatever strategy it is that resonates with you the most, right? So I want to talk about that. So if you go back to episode 1, which is all about how to take way better action, I introduced the concept of the results triad to you. And the results triad is something that I have created based on my own learning from lots and lots of people and studying about not only business and taking action, but also learning about, kind of life coaching kinds of strategies, and kind of melded those all together. And the results triad says that your results are achieved from understanding a strategy. So you've got some knowledge and information. It is your beliefs about that strategy, and that those beliefs are encompassed by your thoughts and your actions. So let's take that texting example. So the strategy is texting in order to onboard new clients. If you have a belief and a thought that texting to onboard new clients is a great idea and it's amazing, you're going to create feelings that give you confidence, that give you kind of peace and comfort to move forward. That is going to inform your actions. So you've got your knowledge, you've got your beliefs, then you've got your actions. Those positive beliefs, those positive thoughts and feelings will drive you to take action, which is to text, right? You will text your clients. And then eventually over time, if you have a feedback loop where you're like, I believe this is valuable, I think it's important, I'm going to keep texting you, and you keep taking the action, you will get the result that you want. But it's that feedback loop that gets people tripped up between your thoughts and your feelings and the actions that you take in a strategy, because your brain is going to change its beliefs. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Your brain is going to start with the belief that, oh my God, that's amazing. What a simple strategy. Cool. Let's do it. And you'll start taking some action. And then there'll be a feedback loop where your brain starts to undermine you. So I'll set that aside for just a minute, because what I really want you to understand is that at the beginning of any strategy that you are going to employ to bring in clients for your staging business, or really go through anything in your staging business, you're going to have to start with a beginner's brain. You're always going to have a beginner's brain pretty much with everything, because building your business is like chutes and ladders. You're going to move forward and be cruising along. And then all of a sudden something's going to come along where you are going to, like, I don't know, I hope everybody's familiar with that game where you've made it to a certain point and then you hit the chute, little square on the game board and you are sliding back down a ladder way back to the beginning. That is how a lot of business looks. So you're going to be cruising along. You're going to be doing some, marketing and outreach, and it's going to feel like it's working. And you're going to have like positive coffee dates with people or networking events that you go to or presentations. You're like, I'm on fire. This is amazing. And then you find out, oh no, I didn't onboard a single new client from any of that activity. And it feels like you're back at the beginning, right? So you're always going to be experiencing this. You're also going to be experiencing problems that you've never solved for before, right? You're going to solve for like, okay, my calendar is starting to get busy. I'm getting really good at selling my services. I don't have any time, or I don't have the energy, or I'm just like burnt out on serving people. And you might need to hire people. That's a new problem that you've never solved for, and your brain is going to rebel. I have my business bestie. She's been in business about a little bit longer than I have. And we just talked about the fact that her brain freaks out every time she needs to hire somebody new because her brain convinces herself that she's never going to find the right person. They're not going to be a right fit. It's going to take a long time. It's going to be a painful onboarding process. And one of the things I do to help her get through that thing is we just connect together, and I actually tell her the exact action steps she needs to take in order to hire a person. And every time it works out great. She hires somebody amazing to get a client or get a new team member, but her brain wants to default on her every single time to keep her from moving forward in the direction that she needs to. So you're going to be in learning mode for a very long time, right? You're going to be in learning mode for a very long time in your business. So you've got to get comfortable with this idea that you're not going to be good at things the first multiple times that you do them. So you'll want to be aware that while you're trying to get good at something, your brain is going to try to stop you every step of the way. So one of the experiences that I have in my life that has helped me understand this is that I was a competitive athlete growing up. And I was a baton twirler, but a competitive baton twirler. So think rhythmic gymnastics and all of that with a baton. Very complicated, very different than what most people think of baton twirling. So incredibly complex, pretty much an entire, 22 years of learning and up-leveling more and more advanced skills and complexity. And what I know about that is that every single crazy trick that I had to learn, I couldn't do in the beginning. I was terrible at it. But what I do know is that I had to practice and practice and practice. And eventually those moves became super easy as muscle memory kicked in, as I learned incrementally what worked, what didn't work, where was I going wrong. And the same thing applies to everything you do in life, learning an instrument, learning a new, language, learning how to post on social media regularly for your business, learning how to reach out without feeling like you're salesy. All of it just takes practice. Learning is complex. In fact, neuroscience tells us that learning comes through three key things, and that's urgency, association, and repetition. And repetition, of course, is the one that I think we need to practice the most. But let me just tell you what the other two are about. So when you're in your beginner's brain, you're going to be learning through any one of these means. So urgency is when stress is creating your learning process. So the great example of this is you'll never use a blow up mattress again because you got an urgent call while you were headed to a holiday, off on your vacation, and you get this urgent message from the realtor at the open house that the beds have deflated. You are going to learn very quickly that you are never using blow up air mattresses again, or if you do, you're going to blow them up first thing and make sure that they don't have any holes in them in your install, right? So those stressful and situations that you encounter and where things don't go as planned are actually your best learning experiences. So as much as they hurt, it hurts to receive back your inventory from an occupied stage where a dog has peed all over your beautiful rugs. You're going to learn really quickly that you're going to set up a client filter, which is in, I can't even remember what episode, but it's one of the episodes before this, is creating client filters so that you don't have to experience that pain again, right? So that's urgency. Association is when you can draw on your past experiences that are rooted in your memory. So if you are one of those people who's been fortunate enough to be using social media in your personal life pretty consistently, making the transition to using social media for your business is probably going to be a lot easier than for those of us who were learning, like me, learning how to use social media only in the context of my business because I really didn't use it personally. You're going to have an easier learning curve. It's going to, help you a lot faster. And repetition, of course, is taking actions that gradually turn into long-term success. And that word gradually is really important. You're going to only see incremental benefits in the beginning, if at all. You're going to repeat without a lot of results. So when I was learning, twirling, I had lots of practices where the trick that I was trying to learn or the routine I was trying to learn was not happening. It wasn't happening well. It wasn't executed flawlessly, until all of a sudden things started to click. And this is why implementing any new strategy or system in your business doesn't feel right. It feels clunky. It feels like it's probably not worth it in the beginning because you're not used to operating within it. So it takes some time. And because your brain doesn't actually want to do the work required to implement, and it really likes the idea of keeping you cozy, it's going to throw up those messages that we said before. And truthfully, your brain likes the idea of implementing a strategy. It just doesn't like the work of implementing a new strategy. Think about that when, you're trying a new workout routine, right? Or it's anything new, right? Like your brain defaults you, just like we said before. But repetition is ultimately what improves your marketing and your sales. It's what brings in clients. What helps you increase your prices. It's what helps you honor your client agreement. It's what helps you let go of clients who aren't a right fit. So knowing all of that, how do we prepare your brain? So that's like awareness, right? First step, awareness. Just understanding that you are likely to experience these thoughts that seem like they're real, but they're just looking to derail you. Knowing the results triad and knowing how that impacts your results is also part of the process. But there's a couple of other things I want you to be aware of. There are 3 phases of belief that you will travel through with anything that you're implementing in your business, whether that is a marketing plan, a new process, onboarding clients, whatever that looks like for you. So the first is pre-possibility. So in the beginning, you'll hear about a strategy. Make lots of money texting or emailing or whatever it is, right? You'll hear that and you'll be like super excited. Oh my God, yes, that's it. That's the solution. You'll meet it with enthusiasm. And this is the strategy. This has to be the thing that will move the needle for my business, right? Then what happens is you start to get in and delve into what it looks like to put that into practice, right? So if I say to you that you should be networking every week and scheduling coffee dates every week as you start your business, you probably be like, yes, of course, I have to meet people. I've got to get to know people. Yes, that makes sense. However, when it comes to implementing, your brain kind of defaults back to impossibility because you'll try it 1 or 2 times and you'll be like, the brain is like, this isn't working. This is confusing. Am I even doing this right? I don't think this is worth it. I think this is taking too long. Should I be doing other things? There's probably more important things I should be doing. There's probably more fun things I should be doing, right? Like maybe I need to go research a little bit more, right? Like that's where your brain ends up in impossibility. So you move from like the super excitement, yes, this is it, to I think this is impossible. This is where most people stop. This is where most people stop working on a strategy because we aren't actually acknowledging that we're beginners and that we need the repetition to get incrementally better. And we're not necessarily going to ever see the results right away of anything we do. In fact, we just onboarded a client who's been on my email list for 7 years. 7 years that I have stayed in touch with that person. And we have our first client appointment with her today. In fact, as I'm recording this podcast, 7 years, people. So they don't all have to be that long, but just because I stay committed to staying in touch via email, I now have onboarded somebody who has, frankly, resisted working with us for quite a while, but I didn't disappear on her. So she knew who to reach out to. Okay. So if you can keep going, what happens is you enter the realm of possibility. And possibility is where you start to see the results of what you're doing. And it might come in very small ways. And you have to be open to seeing when you are beginning to get the results. And you're starting to feel like, okay, what I'm trying to do here is attainable. So if you're trying to onboard, 10 consultations or styling evals a week, and you're starting to see, oh, look at that. I started out where I had 2 appointments each week, and now it seems like I'm more regularly getting 3. Then you start to see, okay, so this is working. Whatever the strategy is that you've chosen in order to onboard a client, you'll see it working. You will start asking you'll start asking questions better. So when you start doing this mind work and you decide, like for me, example, the podcast was something I wanted to do. I started kind of asking myself better questions. Like, if it were possible, how would I do it? What would it look like? How could it work? How could I show up for it? What would be the right timing and delivery and all of that? So your brain starts asking you better questions. So like, for example, and I didn't even know I was doing this back in the day when I first started my business, but I knew I needed to network. I'm an introvert. I had little kids at the time. They were in elementary school. I didn't want to network at night because I really couldn't. I was the chief driver. My husband worked long hours, so I needed to get my kids to all their afternoon activities. So I had to think about, how can I leverage the small window that I have to meet people? And what I came up with was, I chose a networking group, Business Networking International, BNI, that met on a weekly basis at the same time every week. So I didn't have to think about it. It met from 7 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. So what I could do was, my elementary school children were old enough that I could leave them at home while I went to my meeting, and they could get themselves ready for school. And then I would zip out of that meeting and I would take them to school, because they weren't school bus kids. We were too close to the school and I didn't feel comfortable with them walking. So I drove them to school. So what I did was, I found that group that fit the things that I wanted. Then I started to see the results of gaining new clients in BNI. And then what I thought was, how can I leverage BNI even further? And that's when I started to look at chapters that did not have a real estate stager in the group. And when I had more time, I could go and I could substitute for people who were going to be absent. So I put myself out there as somebody who would stand in for you if you had to be absent for your meeting. And then I created a follow-up plan for all of those people that I was meeting that seemed like they'd be ideal fits for my business. And that is how I grew my business, because I started by saying, if I am to network, which I believe I have to do, I think it's important, how am I going to do it with the constraints that I have? And then I just practiced it over and over and over and over again. So that is how it works with literally everything you do, whether you decide that you're going to follow up with clients via email or social media or texting strategy or phone call strategies. Whatever the strategy is, you are going to go through this process where you're going to need to decide, how do I approach it? If it's possible to get clients this way, what does it look like? Who do I need to be? How do I need to feel when I am doing this? And start to prepare your brain, and prepare yourself to talk to your primitive brain who wants to keep you cozy. All right. So that's moving into possibility. And then what happens is, you move into inevitability. So you've bridged the gap between, this is impossible, it's not working, I'm not seeing the results. You bridge the gap to possibility. And then what happens is, as you see your results starting to compound and things working, then you move into this space of inevitability, where you really just get into action flow. And again, I'll go back to the podcast with you, because that's something new for me as a business owner. And I'm back at the beginner's brain. When I first started, I'd known for a couple of years I wanted to do a podcast. And so what I started to do was record my blog each week and just put it on my blog. I didn't formalize it. I didn't send it to Apple or Spotify, because what I really wanted to start to learn, take a baby step, was just the idea of recording my thoughts and having them available on my website. And so we dialed in that process. So then what I did was I reached out to people who I knew who had a podcast, and I was like, well, so how do I now turn this into a formal podcast? And so I learned that, you need episode art and you need show notes and you need like all of those components. So then what I decided to do was turn my blog that I was just kind of housing over on Rethink Home Interiors into what a podcast episode would be. So got in the habit of creating the show notes and all of that. But the point is, I evolved that into now what is this podcast. And we have so many people downloading this podcast every week. And it's like mind blowing to me. But it was because I knew that I had a podcast coming. And I knew that if I just took the steps in a slow, methodical way, I would eventually get there. And the next step is, taking this podcast and making sure that as many people who need this get access to this. And that's what I'm working on right now, because we've created the system for getting this podcast out into the world for you. And now it's a matter of spreading the word and getting all of the marketing dialed in. So I've been really kind and gentle to myself about posting 1 to 2 times a week about the podcast. And we're working on how do we promote, or how do we direct people to the podcast by 3 posts a week, and then using YouTube. But all of it is just baby steps, because I know it's inevitable. So once you understand that your repeated actions are actually compounding, whether you necessarily see the results or not, that is when you are in a really great place in growing your business. So I hope this doesn't feel like, I typically say drinking from a fire hose, but it's really, really important. And I think you should bookmark this podcast episode to just listen to over and over again, because as you grow, you'll hear different things in here. You'll hear it in a different way. But really, truthfully, the biggest thing is if you can master your mind and prepare for the fact that your brain is going to rebel, even when you really want to do something, even when you think it's a really good idea and a great strategy to grow your business. If you can prepare for when the brain says, I don't like this, this is too hard, you're going to see so many greater results than the average entrepreneur out there. So I hope this was great. I hope this sip wasn't too much of a gulp. And I hope you have a wicked good week. And I will see you in the next episode. Have a great week, everybody. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Staging Sips podcast. If you love what you've learned here today and you want to learn more about how to market and grow your staging business more strategically, I would love to see you join us inside of the Rethink You mentorship program. If you want more details and get on our waiting list, you can go to rethinkhomeinteriors.com/waitlist. Looking forward to seeing you in the classroom.